Good evening, listeners. This is James Carter, here with Susan John, and you're tuning in to the Last Signal Radio. Tonight, we bring you a report unlike any other, a bitter Christmas Eve in small-town America, where the snow falls heavier than usual, and the quiet seems unnatural. Reports have begun of neighbors vanishing, homes left undisturbed except for the snowfall. At first glance, it seems isolated, a local mystery. But whispers are spreading, and families inside their homes are reporting strange shadows moving across windows and odd bell-like sounds echoing in the distance.
James, tonight is more than just winter's chill. Residents describe an uneasy feeling as if the town itself is holding its breath. Lights flicker in suburban homes, and the usual cheer of the season feels muted. Social media and local news outlets have started reporting disappearances, but authorities remain baffled. Skeptics call it coincidence, but others whisper of something older, something tied to the ancient legends of Krampus, an alpine figure that punishes those who have forgotten the spirit of kindness and generosity. Could modern greed and mockery of the season have invited such a presence here?
I don't know, Susan. Early reports indicate that the disappearances aren't leaving a trace. No footprints in the snow, no signs of forced entry, nothing to indicate a normal crime. The Sheriff's Department has issued warnings, urging residents to stay vigilant and lock doors, but even they admit they are at a loss. Families are barricading themselves indoors, unsure if what they fear is natural or supernatural. Tonight, we'll begin tracking this chilling event in real time. As darkness deepens, snow thickens, and something ancient and merciless seems to stir in the quiet streets of small-town America.
There are reports of strange shapes in the periphery of streetlights, shadows that move independently of wind or snowfall. A few residents claim to have heard the distant jingling of chains, almost rhythmic, almost deliberate. Some dismiss it as imagination, but others are gripped by fear. Could this be the first sign of Krampus returning to judge those who have lost their way during the season of giving? Tonight, listeners, we will follow this story hour by hour, uncovering the truth behind the vanishings, the shadows, and the ancient folklore that has somehow awakened in our modern world.
As the night falls, families across the town are huddled in their living rooms, the warmth of fireplaces doing little to combat the sense of unease. Streetlights glow faintly through the falling snow, casting distorted shadows across empty sidewalks. This is not merely a local mystery. The pattern of disappearances hints at something older, something that punishes not at random, but with purpose. For tonight, we remain your eyes and ears, reporting on events that may redefine the way small-town America views Christmas, morality, and the unseen forces that may still walk among us.
Listeners, keep in mind, tonight is not just a storm of snow or coincidence. There are rules here, rules older than the town itself. Krampus, according to legend, does not strike without reason. Those who act with greed, cruelty, or mockery of the sacred season may find themselves facing judgment unlike anything they could imagine. Families are warned to remain inside, protect sacred spaces, and reflect on their actions. As the night deepens and the cold wind rattles the windows, we urge you to listen closely, for what begins tonight may haunt this town, and perhaps the nation, for years to come.
Part 2. The First Disappearances. James Carter. Grave, urgent tone. Listeners, the night has taken a darker turn. Reports are pouring in. Neighbors have vanished without a trace, leaving homes seemingly untouched. No footprints, no signs of struggle, only empty rooms and unanswered cries. Residents describe fleeting shadows at the edges of their vision, figures moving through the snow as if the laws of nature no longer apply. The Sheriff's Department confirms multiple missing persons, but admits they have no leads, no evidence, and no explanation. Tonight, The town is facing something beyond normal understanding, and families are realizing that locking doors may not be enough to ensure their safety.
James, eyewitnesses are recounting moments of sheer terror. Some saw shapes that moved against the wind, impossible silhouettes in the storm. The air is filled with faint jingling bells echoing unnaturally across the empty streets. A few brave residents attempted to follow the shadows, only to find snow-covered paths leading nowhere. Fear is spreading faster than the storm itself. Skeptics are starting to whisper that this may be more than folklore, that the ancient figure of Krampus has returned, punishing those whose hearts have strayed from the true spirit of Christmas. And tonight, no one is safe.
That's right, Suzan. Families are barricading themselves inside, drawing salt lines and placing iron objects near windows and doors, following old traditions to keep the entity at bay. The blizzard outside seems almost sentient, moving in ways that defy physics, curling around homes and swirling unnaturally. The local police, once calm and confident, are now overwhelmed, admitting that their modern tools are useless against whatever is moving through the snow. Tonight, this small-town America is not just facing a storm. It is facing an ancient judgment, a reckoning that cannot be ignored, and survival depends on reflection, faith, and adherence to old ways.
Observers report hearing chains dragging across roofs, the faint clinking of bells, and whispers in the wind that seem almost human but impossibly distorted. Panic is rising as families check on neighbors and find empty homes where people once lived. The modern commercialization of Christmas, the decorations, the frivolity, the parades. Some believe these acts have drawn the attention of an ancient force. Tonight, folklore is no longer a story. It is manifesting in real time. The residents are learning too late that greed, cruelty, or mockery of the season is not without consequence.
The sheriff's department has escalated to a criminal investigation, yet every effort is thwarted by the inexplicable nature of these disappearances. The streets are empty, save for the occasional shadow moving against the storm, and even those who remain inside feel the oppressive gaze of something ancient. Families whisper prayers and try to remember the old protections, salt lines, sacred ground, iron, anything to keep the unseen force at bay. Tonight, small-town America is facing a test of morality, courage, and faith, and the lesson is clear. The forgotten values of kindness and generosity may be the only shield against a very real horror.
Listeners, it is now clear that this is not an ordinary blizzard or a simple series of disappearances. Something ancient, something patient and deliberate is moving through the town. Houses are empty, neighbors gone, and shadows flicker unnaturally through the falling snow. This is Krampus returning, and the consequences of selfishness, cruelty, and forgotten morality are being meted out with precision. Families are learning that survival tonight depends not on fighting back, but on facing what they've neglected, reflecting on their sins, and embracing the traditions and protections that have been forgotten for generations.
Listeners' reports are growing more alarming by the hour. Shadows of strange, small figures, known locally as Perchin, have been seen darting through the snow. These are not ordinary creatures. Witnesses describe them as corrupted human servants of Krampus, victims transformed to do his bidding, tormenting the living. The blizzard outside seems to have a life of its own, twisting and swirling unnaturally. Windows rattle despite no wind, streetlights flicker in eerie patterns, and the faint sound of chains jingling drifts through the night. Families barricade themselves indoors, realizing the first disappearances were only the beginning of a terrifying judgment.
James, eyewitnesses describe the Perchin as humanoid yet grotesque, smaller than children but impossibly fast and agile. Their eyes glow faintly in the storm, and they move between houses without leaving tracks. Many residents also report glimpsing a towering figure, Krampus itself, immune to weapons and exuding an aura of dread. The town is no longer facing mere disappearances. Reality itself seems to distort around these agents of judgment. The blizzard, the shadows, and the cries of the missing are merging into a night of incomprehensible terror, where the sins of the season are punished without mercy.
That's horrifying, Susan, because families have begun marking their homes with traditional protections. Salt lines along thresholds, iron objects near windows, sacred symbols etched onto doors. Even so, some who follow these practices report feeling an oppressive presence pressing against them, a shadow watching from outside. The blizzard intensifies, moving in impossible directions, cutting off visibility and distorting familiar streets. The sheriff's department is overwhelmed. Patrols are ineffective. Tonight, small-town America experiences the consequences of forgotten morality, the danger of commercialized Christmas, and the ancient power of a figure that punishes with precision, aided by the Perchin, who now serve its dark purpose.
Listeners, the reports from residents describe surreal scenes, homes shifting slightly in ways that defy logic, streets bending as if reality itself is being rewritten. The Perchin, once human, now torment neighbors, spreading fear and punishing moral failings. Chains and jingling bells echo unnaturally, following families even indoors. This is no ordinary storm. It is Krampus exacting judgment, and the Perchin are extensions of its will. The town is realizing that these ancient agents are relentless, targeting those whose hearts have strayed from kindness and generosity, making survival a matter of reflection, faith, and adherence to old protective traditions.
Listeners, tonight, families are discovering that survival depends on more than locking doors or barricading windows. Greed, cruelty, theft, and mockery of sacred traditions are not ignored. The Perchin relentlessly enforce Krampus's ancient judgment, and the massive figure of Krampus itself looms over the town, impervious to modern weapons. The blizzard has made travel and communication nearly impossible. Isolation is complete. This small town is experiencing firsthand the terrifying consequences of ancient folklore made real, and the lesson is clear. Morality, kindness, and reverence for the sacred are the only shields against this relentless force.
Eyewitnesses report homes being watched, snow swirling against doors with impossible force, and fleeting glimpses of figures whose movements defy logic. Families whisper prayers, trace salt lines, and clutch sacred symbols, hoping to appease the ancient presence. The Perchin, corrupted victims now serving Krampus, spread terror and judge indiscriminately. The giant figure of Krampus punishes with perfect precision, enforcing moral reckoning upon the town. Tonight, the ancient legend manifests, teaching a brutal lesson. Survival depends on confronting one's sins and embracing the traditions that have been forgotten for generations.
Listeners, reports are now confirming what residents feared. Krampus is moving house by house, targeting those whose hearts have strayed from kindness and generosity. The Perchin are relentless, slipping through the snow, invisible to the untrained eye, tormenting the guilty. Families barricade themselves, but some find their homes invaded despite every precaution. The storm twists and shifts, streets bending unnaturally, as if reality itself is complicit. The sheriff's department is powerless, watching disappearances unfold without intervention. Tonight, morality is being enforced with terrifying precision, and survival demands more than fear. It requires genuine reflection, repentance, and adherence to ancient protections.
James, eyewitnesses describe surreal events. Homes appear to shift slightly, walls bending, doorways stretching, making escape nearly impossible. The Perchin, once human, now serve as agents of Krampus, tormenting those guilty of greed, cruelty, or broken sacred vows. Their movements are impossible to track, They seem to phase through snow and walls. Bells and chains echo relentlessly, a herald of judgment. Families are realizing that this night is not random. It is a test, a reckoning of character. Survival depends on acknowledging one's sins and honoring the old traditions, or the ancient forces may claim you next.
Barricades and iron protections provide some comfort, but many report feeling an oppressive presence pressing against windows and doors. Families huddle together, whispering prayers, salt lines drawn meticulously, sacred symbols etched into thresholds. The Perchin strike swiftly, punishing specific moral failings while Krampus looms, observing, measuring, ensuring justice is exact. The blizzard intensifies, visibility dropping to near zero, streets and houses contorting as if alive. Tonight, small-town America experiences firsthand the intersection of folklore, morality, and supernatural wrath. What was once considered legend is now a horrifying reality, and no human measure can fully protect the innocent from judgment.
Eyewitnesses recount doors rattling without wind, shadows moving against logic, and fleeting glimpses of grotesque Perchin dragging victims into the storm. Families who once mocked traditions now cling desperately to salt, iron, and sacred ground. The line between reality and folklore blurs as the town becomes a landscape of moral reckoning. Every act of selfishness or cruelty is punished. The Perchin are not mindless. They understand guilt and purpose, tormenting the guilty and leaving warnings for the living. Tonight, listeners, survival is not about fighting back. It is about facing the truths you have long avoided.
Authorities are unable to intervene. Patrols are ineffective, and modern technology fails against Krampus and his Perchin servants. Families report entire streets abandoned, neighbors gone without trace, the snow undisturbed except for impossible footprints that vanish mid-path. Each disappearance carries meaning, a reflection of sins and moral failings. Families desperate to survive whisper confessions, follow ancient rituals, and pray. This is more than a storm or a myth. It is a judgment enacted house by house. The ancient Alpine folklore has returned, reshaping reality and enforcing morality, leaving only the vigilant, the repentant, and the fearful to endure the night.
Listeners, tonight the terror is personal and precise. The Perchin act with intelligence, punishing those who have strayed morally, while Krampus oversees the judgment with terrifying authority. Snow swirls unnaturally, homes distort, and shadows flicker impossibly across walls. Families whisper for mercy, follow protective rituals, yet the storm and the agents of Krampus care little for excuses. Modernity has no power here. The lessons of kindness, generosity, and reverence for tradition are literal shields against an ancient force. As the night drags on, listeners, the town learns a terrifying truth. Morality is being enforced house by house, and no one is beyond scrutiny.
Listeners, the terror shows no signs of slowing. Reports indicate Krampus and the Perchin are striking relentlessly, moving beyond single streets to entire neighborhoods. The blizzard outside grows more unnatural, twisting paths and making familiar streets unrecognizable. Families who thought themselves safe are finding doors rattling, windows freezing over, and shadows stretching impossibly across walls. The sheriff's department admits that patrols are ineffective. Even modern surveillance fails to detect the Perchin. Tonight, the town is engulfed in fear, and survival is no longer about barricades. It is about recognizing sins, following ancient protections, and truly understanding the consequences of forgotten kindness.
James, eyewitnesses describe impossible phenomena. Trees bending against the wind, snow swirling into shapes resembling grotesque faces, and distorted reflections in windows that seem alive. The Perchin, corrupted human servants of Krampus, continue their relentless torment, punishing greed, cruelty, theft, and broken sacred vows. Families report that attempts to flee are thwarted. The storm and the supernatural agents seem aware of their movements. The moral panic spreads not only through fear but through observation of punishment. Small transgressions, mocking Christmas, hoarding gifts, selfishness are targeted. Tonight, the ancient judgment is precise, relentless, and impossible to ignore.
Barricades, salt lines, iron, and sacred symbols provide some protection, but many families report feeling a presence pressing against their homes. The blizzard intensifies, moving in impossible directions, as if reality itself bends to enforce judgment. The Perchin are everywhere. Fleeing neighbors are intercepted, doors are bypassed, and fear escalates. Families whisper prayers, confess old misdeeds, and hope that reflection and repentance will spare them. The town is learning that Krampus's punishment is not random. Each action, each moral failing carries weight tonight. Modernity offers no protection. Ancient forces are exacting judgment house by house, street by street.
Observers report distorted streets, homes seeming to move slightly, and shadows that refuse to obey logic. Snow piles unnaturally against doors, yet Perchin slips past them effortlessly. Residents describe hearing chains dragging across rooftops, bells ringing without source, and whispers that chill the soul. Families desperate to survive cling to rituals passed down for generations, praying for mercy and protection. The line between reality and nightmare blurs. What was once folklore, the ancient alpine judgment of Krampus, is now manifesting in horrifying detail, punishing the guilty, and leaving the town gripped by terror, unable to escape the consequences of its collective sins.
Authorities are powerless to intervene. Patrols are ineffective, calls for backup go unanswered, and modern defenses fail against Krampus and his Perchin. Families report entire streets emptied in minutes, neighbors gone without a trace, snow undisturbed except for impossible marks that vanish mid-path. The ancient rules of morality are now literal shields or punishments. Greed, cruelty, and neglect are being punished with perfect precision. Tonight, small-town America faces the terrifying intersection of folklore and reality, as Krampus teaches a lesson in morality, kindness, and the sacred traditions that have long been forgotten by the modern world.
Listeners, the town is in chaos, yet even in fear, there's a lesson. The Perchin act with intelligence, punishing those who have strayed morally, while Krampus oversees every movement with terrifying authority. Snow swirls impossibly, homes distort, and shadows flicker against walls. Families are whispering prayers, following rituals, and hoping the ancient protections hold. But Krampus is precise, deliberate, and unforgiving. Tonight, morality is enforced beyond human comprehension, and the town is learning that survival requires reflection, faith, and facing the truths long avoided. The ancient judgment does not forgive, it only punishes.
Listeners, the small town is no longer unified. Fear has divided neighbors and families. Some insist on staying calm, trying to rationalize disappearances as pranks or accidents, while others accept the terrifying reality of Krampus and the Perchin. Barricades are being reinforced, yet even strong doors cannot guarantee safety. Reports indicate that those who have ignored ancient protections are being punished first. Families debate whether to stay together or separate to survive. The sheriff's department is overwhelmed, admitting they can do nothing to stop the supernatural agents. The community is fracturing under pressure, and trust is becoming as scarce as warmth in this bitter blizzard.
James, eyewitnesses describe neighbors turning on each other in panic. Some attempt to flee the town, only to find the blizzard inexplicably changing street layouts, trapping them. Others retreat into homes, whispering prayers and following salt lines, iron and sacred symbols. The Perchin, corrupted human servants of Krampus, strike with intelligence and precision, punishing greed, cruelty, and moral failings. The massive Krampus looms in the distance, unassailable by modern means, ensuring that judgment is carried out. Families now realize that survival is not merely physical, it is moral, spiritual, and psychological, as the storm and ancient entities push the town toward collapse.
The storm and supernatural events have transformed the town into a landscape of moral reckoning. Homes shift, streets twist, and the Perchin appear without warning, tormenting those deemed guilty. Fear has escalated to desperation. Families cling to ancient traditions, whispering confessions, performing rituals, and hoping that reflection and repentance can keep them alive. Modern law enforcement has become powerless, unable to intervene or comprehend the events. Tonight, the community learns that Krampus's judgment is precise and personal, and that the ancient folklore brought to life will not tolerate negligence, selfishness, or cruelty, punishing transgressions in real time.
Listeners, the moral tension in the town is palpable. Families argue over whose sins might have drawn the wrath. Neighbors accuse each other, and fear spreads faster than the snow. The Perchin act as enforcers, punishing the guilty while observing the fearful. Chains rattle, bells jingle, and shadows move with impossible agility, leaving no one certain of what is safe. Survival is now a test of introspection. Only those who recognize their faults, embrace repentance, and adhere to protective rituals stand a chance. The town is fractured, the blizzard intensifies, and the judgment of Krampus is both inevitable and inescapable.
Authorities have abandoned hopes of controlling the situation. Modern defenses are useless, and families are forced to rely on ancient practices, prayers and reflection. Streets are empty except for shadows and the faint glow of impossible lights. The Perchin move strategically, and the massive figure of Krampus observes silently, delivering judgment with terrifying precision. Every home, every family, every individual faces personal reckoning. Tonight, the town is learning a brutal truth. When ancient morality returns in full force, only awareness, repentance, and adherence to sacred protections can grant even a slim chance of survival.
Listeners, small-town America is fractured, gripped by fear, and facing its darkest hour. The Perchin strike where moral failings are greatest, while Krampus oversees the night, unrelenting and unstoppable. Families are realizing that survival is not about strength, weapons, or escape. It is about confronting the sins that have been ignored, embracing ancient traditions, and preparing spiritually for judgment. The blizzard rages, streets shift, and shadows lengthen. Tonight, the town learns the harshest lesson. The wrath of Krampus does not discriminate randomly. It enforces morality, punishing the guilty and testing the fearful with terrifying intent.
Listeners, the night has reached its darkest hour. Krampus and the Perchin are now striking with terrifying precision, moving through the snow with supernatural speed and intelligence. Streets and homes are warped, as if the town itself bends under their presence. Families huddle indoors, praying and performing ancient rituals, but the storm and the supernatural agents leave almost no safe space. Reports indicate that entire neighborhoods have been emptied in minutes, and the blizzard's fury grows stronger, disorienting residents. Tonight, small-town America faces the ultimate test. Survival may depend on nothing more than reflection, repentance, and adherence to sacred protections.
James, eyewitnesses describe the Perchin striking relentlessly, dragging those deemed guilty into the storm. Their movements are impossible to follow, phasing through walls and snow, leaving no trace. The massive figure of Krampus has been seen standing over streets, observing, ensuring judgment is exact. Families whisper confessions, trace salt lines, and clutch sacred symbols, hoping that ancient practices will shield them. The storm defies logic, snow twisting unnaturally around homes, streets bending. The town is learning that modern defenses, rational thought, and even escape are futile against this ancient force, and that moral reckoning is now literal and unavoidable.
Barricades and iron offer some comfort, but reports confirm they are insufficient against the supernatural. Families who ignored moral reflection or protective rituals face immediate punishment, while those who act with sincere repentance report temporary reprieve. The Perchin and Krampus enforce judgment with frightening intelligence, ensuring no sin goes unnoticed. The blizzard isolates the town completely, making communication, flight, or rescue impossible. Tonight, the ancient alpine folklore has returned in full force, transforming the familiar streets into a nightmarish landscape of moral reckoning where survival depends on courage, reflection, and adherence to time-honored traditions.
Listeners, the town is in chaos, yet even in terror, the lessons are clear. The Perchin, once human victims, now agents of Krampus, punish greed, cruelty, theft, and broken sacred vows. Bells jingle and chains rattle outside every home, shadows stretch impossibly, and the storm distorts reality itself. Families huddle, performing rituals, praying and reflecting on sins, hoping mercy will spare them. The magnitude of Krampus's power is undeniable. This is more than folklore. It is living judgment, relentless, intelligent, and morally precise, reminding every resident that survival is bound to repentance and recognition of past wrongs.
Authorities remain powerless, unable to comprehend or contain the events. Families describe empty streets, warped homes, and fleeting shadows of Perchin executing judgment. The giant Krampus stands above the storm, watching, ensuring that punishment is fair, deliberate, and inescapable. Ancient traditions, faith, and moral reflection are the only shields left. Tonight, small-town America experiences firsthand that the forgotten rules of morality are enforced with precision, and that the consequences of selfishness, cruelty, and greed are real, immediate, and deadly. The storm will not relent until judgment is complete, and no modern measure can alter the outcome.
Listeners, this night is proving that folklore is not fiction. The Perchin strike where moral failings are greatest, dragging victims into the blizzard without trace, while Krampus oversees the terror with unyielding authority. Families whisper prayers, follow salt lines, and hold sacred symbols hoping to survive. Modernity provides no defense. Strength, weapons, or rational thought are useless. Survival depends solely on repentance, adherence to ancient practices, and recognition of sins. Tonight, the town faces the stark truth. Judgment is absolute, the storm is unstoppable, and Krampus watches patiently, ensuring that no transgression goes unpunished.
Listeners, midnight has descended, and with it comes the full, terrifying fury of Krampus and the Perchin. Reports confirm that the storm and supernatural forces are no longer confined to a single town. Disappearances now ripple state by state, leaving entire neighborhoods eerily silent. Snow blankets homes where families once lived, marking absence with chilling finality. The Perchins strike with intelligence and malice, dragging those guilty of greed, cruelty, and broken vows into the blizzard, leaving nothing behind. The storm itself moves with impossible precision, twisting streets, bending reality, and defying comprehension. Families huddle in terror, understanding that escape is futile. Survival now depends on reflection, genuine repentance, and strict adherence to ancient protections, rituals and symbols that stand between life and the merciless judgment that prowls the night.
James, eyewitnesses describe the Perchin as relentless, slipping through walls, phasing through snow, and tormenting the guilty with horrifying precision. Krampus looms over towns like a colossal, impossible shadow, warping reality around him. Streets twist unnaturally, houses bend as if alive, and shadows flicker in defiance of physics. Bells jingle and chains drag across rooftops, echoing through the storm, announcing judgment with a clarity that terrifies all who hear. Families attempt to shield themselves with salt, iron, prayers, and sacred symbols, but even these measures only delay the inevitable. The lessons of kindness, generosity, and moral integrity are no longer abstract. They are literal shields against forces far older, far wiser, and far more merciless than humanity itself. Every choice, every act, and every lapse in virtue is now a matter of survival under the watchful eyes of Krampus.
Observers report phenomena that defy all understanding. Homes seemingly vanishing from view, streets curving and twisting impossibly, and snow piling in patterns that mock reason and logic. The Perchin move with cold, methodical precision, tormenting their victims and punishing moral failings with an unerring sense of judgment, while Krampus looms above, overseeing every action with deliberate, uncompromising authority. Families whisper prayers, trace protective salt lines, and perform sacred rituals, desperately clinging to long-forgotten traditions as their only hope. The storm isolates the nation, severing communication lines, rendering authorities powerless, and leaving ordinary measures of protection entirely ineffective. This is no ordinary night, no tale of folklore. It is ancient judgment made manifest, a moral reckoning with precise consequences for greed, cruelty, neglect, and forgotten virtues. Survival depends entirely on recognition of one's sins, deep spiritual reflection, and strict adherence to protective customs that were once dismissed as superstition. Every moment carries weight, every action is observed, and mercy is granted only to those who earn it through virtue and awareness.
Listeners, eyewitnesses report fleeting, horrifying glimpses of distorted figures, Perchin dragging victims into the swirling snow, leaving no trace behind, as if they were erased from existence. Snow swirls unnaturally, shadows move contrary to the laws of physics, and houses twist and warp as if alive, responding to the moral failings within. Panic spreads not solely through fear, but through observation of punishment. Neighbors disappearing in minutes, homes abandoned as families flee or hide. Krampus ensures that judgment is precise, sparing only the repentant and merciful, leaving others to face inescapable fate. Modern tools, rational thought, firearms, and even flight offer no protection against these ancient, relentless forces. The storm and its judgment extend far beyond a single town, hinting that no region of the nation may escape the consequences of forgotten morality this night. Families cling to prayers, rituals, and each other, knowing that the night's terror is a literal manifestation of justice, and that the eyes of Krampus watch all, patient and eternal, ready to strike wherever virtue falters.
Authorities remain utterly helpless, openly admitting that patrols, emergency calls, and every modern intervention are meaningless against the relentless forces of Krampus and the Perchin. Across towns and cities, families recount scenes that defy comprehension. Streets emptied of life, homes warped and twisted in impossible ways, shadows flickering independently, and snow swirling with an almost sentient awareness. The blizzard itself seems alive, bending reality to enforce judgment with a precision that no human hand could achieve. Acts of greed, cruelty, neglect, and moral failure are punished swiftly and deliberately, leaving nothing to chance. Tonight, the nation bears witness to the stark, inescapable consequences of ignoring morality, as folklore transforms into law enforced by supernatural authority. Families desperate to survive cling tightly to prayers, ancient rituals, protective symbols, and reflection, learning that these traditions are not relics of the past, but the only safeguard against Krampus's relentless wrath. Every action, every choice, every moral failing now carries a weight beyond human understanding. The night serves as a chilling, unflinching reminder that these ancient forces are patient, vigilant, and unforgiving, ready to strike wherever morality falters. Even as survivors seek shelter and safety, the knowledge that judgment is absolute hangs over every home, every street, and every heart.
Listeners, the terror is complete and unrelenting. The Perchin execute punishment with terrifying intelligence, dragging guilty victims into the blizzard without trace, while Krampus himself oversees every movement, meting out judgment with precise and unyielding authority. Snow piles unnaturally, drifting into impossible shapes. Shadows stretch and flicker as if alive, and homes contort as though reacting to the moral weight of their inhabitants. Families whisper prayers, follow detailed rituals, and cling desperately to protective symbols, knowing that their lives hang by a thread of compliance and virtue. Modernity offers no protection. Strength, weapons, rational thought, and technology all fail against these ancient, relentless forces. Tonight, Krampus demonstrates with terrifying clarity that morality is enforced with absolute precision, that the storm is unstoppable, and that judgment is uncompromising. Those who have strayed from kindness, generosity, or sacred tradition are at the mercy of powers far older, far wiser, and far more merciless than humanity. Across the nation, fear and awe have taken root in every mind, leaving survivors forever aware that these forces watch patiently, always vigilant, and that no lapse in morality will go unnoticed. The night has shown that ancient law is not symbolic. It is literal, it is relentless, and it will continue to assert itself whenever humanity forgets its lessons.
Listeners, the blizzard has finally begun to ease, revealing streets and homes cloaked in an eerie, unsettling stillness. Empty houses stand like silent witnesses, warped structures bend unnaturally, and footprints vanish mysteriously mid-path, leaving no trace of those who fled or were taken. Survivors speak of terror that defies comprehension. The Perchin dragging neighbors into the storm, their faces twisted in silent screams, and the towering, immense figure of Krampus overseeing judgment with unerring precision. Families huddle in their homes, whispering prayers, recounting sins, and performing rituals, hoping that their repentance spared them from wrath. Across the nation, reports emerge of similar horrors unfolding in distant towns and cities. This night has left small-town America, and perhaps the nation itself, forever altered. A stark reminder that some ancient forces are neither forgotten nor forgiving.
James, the aftermath is hauntingly surreal. Streets are unnaturally silent, the snow still falling but no longer in the impossible warped patterns that terrified witnesses. Families venture out cautiously, noticing the absence of neighbors, the distorted landscapes, and landmarks that seem subtly, unnervingly changed. Panic, disbelief, and sorrow intertwine with the relief of survival. Eyewitnesses describe moral reflection as essential for endurance. Prayers whispered, confessions made, and rituals performed may have been the very acts that preserved life. Yet fear remains, for the Perchin and Krampus were selective in their punishments, leaving lingering uncertainty over who may yet face judgment. Across America, communities are whispering of the night's horrors, realizing that the ancient alpine law has visited more than one town. Its lessons carved deep into memory, morality, and the understanding that survival is never guaranteed when such forces are at play.
Authorities are beginning the painstaking task of documenting the aftermath. But modern tools, science, and reason provide little explanation for what transpired. Entire streets lie deserted. Families remain traumatized, and homes bear distortions that defy logic and comprehension. Survivors recount the terror in whispers, speaking of the Perchin, once human victims, now transformed into agents of judgment, and the looming, ever-present shadow of Krampus. Reflection, repentance, and strict adherence to ancient protective practices proved essential for survival, while modern methods offered no true shield. Though the storm has passed, its end is deceptive. The lessons linger as clearly as the snow that blankets the town. Families now understand that Krampus's judgment leaves lasting marks, not only on the psyche of survivors, but on the fabric of the community and the nation as a whole. The night has ended, but the memory and the fear it wrought will endure far longer than any storm.
Listeners, even as the first light of morning spreads across the landscape remains forever altered. Homes stand empty, shadows cling unnaturally to corners, and families speak in hushed tones of what they endured. Reports indicate that the Perchin have vanished, yet survivors know that these corrupted servants of Krampus serve as a lasting warning. Morality cannot be ignored without consequence. Though the blizzard has lifted, the moral reckoning of the night persists in every heart and household. Communities are torn between disbelief and the uneasy recognition of ancient judgment. Families cling more tightly than ever to traditions, prayers, and sacred symbols, understanding that these practices are not merely rituals, but shields against a judgment that can strike without warning. One truth is clear. The horrors of that night have permanently altered America's understanding of morality, folklore, and the consequences of forgotten kindness, leaving an indelible mark that will resonate for generations.
Across the town and far beyond, news crews and authorities scramble to document what occurred, but reality itself seems to defy all explanation. Families recount instances of selective punishment. Those guilty of misdeeds were taken, while the repentant survived, spared by judgment that transcends human understanding. Salt lines, iron, prayers, and rituals proved essential, yet modern reasoning and technology offered little protection. The storm may have ended, yet its imprint remains indelible. Survivors now grapple with the trauma of witnessing a moral reckoning beyond comprehension, while communities are left questioning the nature of morality, folklore, and the unseen forces that govern consequences. Tonight has proven that the ancient traditions were never mere myths. They were warnings, living laws that endure, and their relevance remains as vital as ever.
Listeners, small-town America has been forever transformed. The Perchin have vanished into legend once more, yet survivors carry vivid memories of every terrifying detail, the clanging chains, the relentless jingling of bells, the warped and unnatural streets, and the precise, selective punishment of moral failings. Krampus has left an undeniable mark on the nation, a stark reminder that kindness, generosity, and reverence for ancient traditions are shields against judgment. Modern tools, skepticism, or disbelief cannot prevent it. As families cautiously emerge from their homes shaken but alive, they understand that this night will be etched into both memory and folklore alike. Krampus came, punished the guilty, spared the repentant, and now watches patiently, unseen but vigilant, waiting for the next reckoning that tests the hearts of those who may forget the lessons of this night.
Listeners, Morning has broken across the nation, yet the events of last night continue to haunt every shadow, every deserted street, and every warped home. Families emerge cautiously, speaking in whispers of prayers offered, rituals performed, and the terror they endured. The Perchin have vanished, and Krampus himself has receded into the darkness, but the memory of their passage is indelible. Small-town America, and perhaps the nation as a whole, has been irrevocably altered. Survivors recount tales of moral reflection, repentance, and the imperative to honor traditions long ignored in the rush of modern life. No technology, no logic, no defense of modernity could shield them from judgment. Though the storm has lifted and the snow begins to melt, the lessons remain clear. The fear lingers, and the awareness of unseen forces persists as a chilling reminder that ancient law has once again passed through the land, leaving its mark on every conscience.
James, across neighborhoods, towns, and states, families are reckoning with loss, reconciling with the horrors of the night, and struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what occurred. Empty homes, warped streets, and fading snow serve as silent witnesses to the selective punishment of sins, the deliberate reckoning that spared the virtuous and punished the guilty. The Perchin, once human victims of misdeeds, have returned to legend, leaving survivors to understand the severity of their wrath. Krampus enforced judgment with terrifying precision, a reminder that kindness, generosity, and adherence to sacred traditions are not mere virtues, but shields against his scrutiny. Communities remain shaken, fully aware that these events were not random, and that the ancient forces continue to watch, patient and vigilant, waiting for the next breach of morality. The nation has survived, but its people are forever marked by the knowledge that belief, virtue, and vigilance are the only defenses against judgment unseen.
Authorities and news crews work tirelessly to restore a sense of normalcy, but modern explanations falter when confronted with the events that transpired. Survivors recount experiences that defy rationality, moral reckonings that singled out the guilty, punishment meted with uncanny precision, and phenomena that seem impossible. Streets bending unnaturally, shadows moving with intent, and the blizzard itself appearing to act with deliberate purpose. Families cling to rituals, prayers, and quiet reflection, fully aware that their survival was earned through vigilance and virtue, not mere luck. Krampus's judgment has proven that folklore is not mere story. It carries literal, inescapable consequences. Listeners, the nation now bears the memory of what was unleashed and what was controlled. Though the streets appear calm and daily life resumes, the echoes of chains, the jingling of bells, and the unseen torment of the Perchin linger, a persistent reminder that judgment is patient, relentless, and inevitable, waiting for the next lapse in morality.
Even as the world slowly resumes its daily rhythm, the psychological aftermath is profound and far-reaching. Survivors report lingering fear, heightened moral awareness, and a deep, abiding respect for customs that once seemed archaic. Communities are divided between disbelief and cautious reverence, struggling to reconcile what they saw with the reality they thought they knew. The Perchin may have vanished, and Krampus may have retreated into the shadows, yet the silent warning endures. Selfishness, cruelty, and neglect carry consequences beyond imagination. Families who endured the night are irrevocably changed, their understanding of morality sharpened by experience. They know now that the night was not chaos, it was judgment. And though the figures may no longer be visible, Krampus continues to watch, patient, unwavering, and ready to punish whenever belief falters and humanity forgets that ancient laws are eternal.
Listeners, America is quiet once more, but the nation carries wounds and memories that will never fade. The blizzard has receded, leaving behind a landscape scarred by snow, wind, and the echoes of a night unlike any other. Yet the greater scars are invisible. Etched into the minds of every survivor are lessons of morality, repentance, and reverence for sacred traditions that cannot be ignored. Families whisper confessions in hushed tones, perform long-forgotten rituals, and honor the ancient warnings, fully aware that the Perchin and Krampus have not overlooked a single transgression. No technology, no modern convenience, no rational explanation can erase what transpired. The terror, the moral reckoning, and the supernatural judgment have left indelible marks on every community, on every soul. Krampus came as foretold, punishing the guilty with relentless precision, sparing those who were repentant, and then retreated, leaving a nation forever conscious that morality carries consequences beyond human comprehension. Even as the snow melts and life returns to a fragile normalcy, the memory of that night lingers like frost in the heart, a reminder that some ancient laws are eternal, and some watchers never forget.
Although the nation outwardly returns to normal, the memory of last night will remain vivid, etched into every corner where fear and awe once walked together. Survivors carry stories of the Perchin, of impossible snowdrifts that defied all reason, warped streets where reality seemed to bend, and of Krampus himself, an imposing figure enforcing judgment with terrifying precision. Families understand that survival was never guaranteed by chance alone. It depended on morality, reflection, and strict adherence to ancient customs that modern life has almost forgotten. Even now, Krampus watches from the shadows, unseen yet patient, a silent sentinel over a nation too quick to dismiss the old laws. Communities whisper warnings to one another, passing down tales of who was spared, who was punished, and why. The ancient Alpine code has proven true once more. Kindness and repentance are rewarded with survival, cruelty, and indifference punished with terror. America sleeps tonight, but the watchers remain. They wait in the unseen corners of the world, ensuring that when belief falters, when humanity grows complacent, judgment will inevitably return, and no soul will be exempt from the reckoning that waits for those who forget.